And this is really pretty strong stuff from the Pope. What interests me is we don't seem to hear anything like that from the Archbishop of Canterbury, Gavin Welby. I just don't know why. What is going on within our churches? Well, I'm very pleased to say that joining me is Dr Gavin Ashenden, former chaplain to the Queen, and, of course, now very much on the other side, a Catholic commentator now.
Yes, Nigel. Well, one of the reasons I became a Catholic was because when I saw this huge cultural crisis, which is affecting our society and risking taking away freedom of speech, democracy and personal autonomy, it seemed to me that the Catholic Church was the one organization that had the power and the coherence to take it on. And I think what the Pope has said to the diplomats against cancel culture is one of the most important things he's said since he became Pope. And I'm absolutely delighted that he said it. And I hope what he does is to set this ball running, and Christians all over the world, the nearly 2 billion Catholics, will join him in this, in taking cancel culture on.
Well, it's certainly an act of leadership, and he was very, very unequivocal and very clear in what he said. We saw a report this week, Gavin, that about 400 C of E churches are due to close. And I know that you've left the Anglican Church, but I'm sure you still wish it well. Why are we not seeing the Archbishop of Canterbury or senior Anglicans saying anything like what we've seen from Pope Francis in the last 48 hours?
Yes, of course, I wish it well. I'm very grateful from all my life as an Anglican, and I've received so much from it. But it's precisely because I'm so grateful that my heart began to break when I saw the Church leaking the integrity that is essential to Christianity. There are a number of reasons, of course. I mean, one is the fact that Christians in Europe have endured an enormous secular and atheist onslaught on the faith and haven't fought back with enough energy and imagination. But that's changing. And the other is that, unfortunately, the system of appointments, the system of the bureaucracy has mirrored what so many other systems have. We find cancel culture and neo-Marxism, well, it's everywhere. It's in the universities, it's in the police, it's in the hospitals, as you've just been hearing earlier on this evening, and it got into the church. And I'm sorry that there are very few voices in the Church of England, some wonderful ones, but very few who are challenging it. It's so important that Pope Francis has picked this up, because there are two critical ideas Christianity has. One is that in terms of choosing to empower and love matters more. And in terms of the sacredness of the individual, instead of the collective identity, individuals are sacred. And these two ideas are completely opposed to the ones that gave birth to cancel culture. And that's one of the reasons why I think Catholic Christianity has the resources to challenge it and to see it off.
I mean, part of the motive, I think, behind cancel culture and perhaps the removal of statues is there are many things in our past, in our history, that people today find extremely distasteful, difficult to face up to. How do we deal with that?
Well, their motivation is excellent. What they want is a more just society. Essentially, what they're hoping for is to right wrongs of historical injustice. But it's a bit like a bad doctor getting hold of dangerous medicine. Just because you want to heal your patient doesn't mean that you're not going to kill them if you do it badly. And the problem with the secular utopianism that cancel culture represents is that although its motivation is very laudable, it's got the wrong diagnosis and the wrong prescription. So what it wants to do is to force people to adopt narratives and to rechange history. And the trouble is you can't make people behave better by cancelling them or by forcing them. You actually have to love them better. And in the end, I think it's Christianity that has the greatest chance of doing that. So their motives are good, but their prescriptions are bad.
And when it comes to the Church of England, the Anglican Church, still the established church in this country, although at some point in time I suspect there is going to be a debate about that. What hope is there now? How does the Anglican Church turn this around? Because all I can see are people, committed Christians, and I've had spoken to you before here at GBNews. Equally, I had Bishop Michael Nazar Ali, the former Bishop of Rochester, in this studio just a couple of months ago, and he's now joined the Catholic Church. Is there any hope for the Anglican Church?
Nigel, for the whole of my life, when someone says it's a hope, I've tried to find some, and I'm passionate about finding hope, and I'm really embarrassed because the reason I became a Catholic was because I couldn't find any hope. I had been working very hard as an Anglican for decades to turn the system around, but actually the people who believe in progressive values had got control of the organisation, and just as everywhere else, they weren't going to let go. So for me, there are Christians right across the spectrum of the denominations, lots of very good ones in other places, Pentecostals, evangelicals, Baptists, working hard. But I decided that the most authentic hope lay in the Catholic Church. And that's one of the reasons why I gave up my past and my love of Anglicanism and moved across. But it doesn't matter where you are. What we have to do is to find a way of thinking clearly and courageously, and making sure that this terrible cultural steamroller doesn't crush us, take away our freedom of speech, take away our freedom of employment, and take away our humanity.
And a quick thought on the evangelical movement, which from what I can see is also growing in this country and quite quickly in some places.
Yes, it is. And I mean, that's the dilemma the Church of England faces. It got rid of its Catholic wing and its evangelical wing. It cancelled them effectively and made them go elsewhere. But passionate evangelicals are doing very well. They're growing. They're utterly enthusiastic about their witness, their love of the Bible, their love of Jesus, and their love of faith. They do it in a whole kind of plethora of groups. It's a very individual way of being a Christian. The Catholic Church is the same, but at the other end of the spectrum. It has a long history, a very powerful sense of coherence. And so these two wings are the ones that are, I think, proving to be most successful at representing Christianity in this cultural struggle we face.
Fascinating. Gavin Ashenden, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on GB News. And strong words